Welcome to the Hendrick Hudson Board of Education meeting. Today is Wednesday, September 7th, and the board is going to open the meeting first, right? Can I have a motion to open the meeting?
Motion.
Can I have a second?
Second. Me, I'm ready.
Got it. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, the board is going to go into executive session. The Hendrick Hudson School District Board of Education will convene for the purpose of collective negotiations under the Taylor Law, medical, financial, credit, or employment history of a particular person or corporation, or matters leading to the appointment or employment history of a particular person or corporation, or matters leading to the appointment or employment or promotion or demotion or discipline or suspension or removal of a particular person or corporation. Can I have a motion to enter into executive session?
Motion.
Can I have a second? All in favor? Aye. Okay, the board will be back at approximately 7 p.m. For our public portion of the meeting. Good evening. Thank you for joining us tonight. The board has just returned from executive session. Would you please all stand for the pledge? I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we're gonna start the night off with some recognition, and I'm gonna let Mr. Hawkrider open that up.
Yes, we're very excited to have some key personnel with us. Not everyone could attend, but we have a number of key personnel representing some of our schools to recognize them for outstanding efforts to make sure that our facilities were ready, our classrooms were set up, and our schools were cleaned, to welcome back over 2,200 students. I would say yesterday, even though that was the first day of school, but we had over 1,000 elementary students making their way through our 3 elementary schools last Wednesday and Thursday. It was an incredible effort. So I'll ask Anthony Merlini to come to the microphone to briefly talk about the gentlemen that are here to be recognized.
Good evening, everyone. As Superintendent said, we're here to recognize some people, the custodial staff, a couple of the individuals that work for me, and the people that work below them. I want to thank you for this opportunity to allow me to recognize them. They did an amazing job this summer. We had a lot of work to do in a short amount of time, and trying to keep all the other programs in the building, whether that be camps, whether that be our kinder camp, whether that be an ELL program, or whatever. We had kept all those programs running, and these gentlemen still were able to man their buildings and get their buildings cleaned and moved around and furniture moved and all these different projects that we did inside the building so we can open up school on time and get our staff and students back in there. So I'd like to recognize several of these individuals. Tonight we have Ray Gilbert from Frank and Lindsay Elementary School. We have Anthony Rojas from our Grounds Department. Danny Harrison from Blue Mountain Middle School. And Rich Dene from the high school. 2 other individuals I'd like to at least recognize them as well. Tommy Grant, he wasn't feeling well. He's at Buchanan for Plank Elementary School, but he couldn't be here tonight because he's under the weather. And also William Rundle, our head custodian in Furnace Woods, he retired, and he had some health issues and he wasn't able to make it as well. So I'd like to recognize all these individuals and all their efforts that they put in. But it is also a team effort, and these guys can do what they have to do without their guys underneath them. So I'd like to recognize all those people as well, because they all grouped together and they all came through to do what they had to do. And beyond that, then we have administrators, we have principals, we have other staff members inside the building, and they all worked hand in hand with these people, knowing when they were going to be in there and scheduling their time around them so they could do what they had to do to get those individuals back in the building. So it's a group, it's a team effort. Everybody worked as a team to get everything done. So I feel remiss if I can mention everybody. I know we're here to recognize them, but for me it's a team effort. And we have Liz Gillio here tonight as well. She's going to present later on, but her staff and their drivers and everything like that, what they did and how they could get people back and forth to the buildings. And and whatnot. So all those things together combined makes it, this great effort that we have here and this collaboration. So excellent job, and I'm very proud of all of them. So thank you. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, so now we're going to move on to our agenda for the evening. Thank you so much, Anthony, that was wonderful. And thank you guys again. So can I have a motion to approve the agenda as stated?
So moved.
A second? All in favor? Moving on to the consent agenda. Can, oh. Still want it? No? All right. So new to the agenda, we've moved up the audience comment section to about non-agenda items. We want to make sure that you're able to speak and then carry on and go about your business if that's what you choose to do, or stay with us. So at this time, Carmen, do we have anybody that is signed up for non-agenda?
We do tonight.
We do?
Yes. Do you want to read the statement?
I will, yeah. I'm actually not going to read the statement in full. I think you were each handed the statement upon arrival. I just want to highlight a few things rather than read the whole thing to you. We really value that you guys come here and want to speak to us and present yourselves. And we welcome you, but we have to make sure that we keep things on target and at pace, and that we don't discuss personnel, and that you're speaking to the board and not addressing any, one individual in the room. We don't want to do that. We try to limit and keep to 3 minutes per speaker. Please don't be offended. We just want to make time for everybody to have a chance to speak. So please make sure that you're familiar with our rules before you come up to the podium. And when you do come up, tell us your name and what school you belong to or where you live, and then feel free to speak.
So I'm going to keep time, so I'll wave my hand.
Yep, Allie's over here keeping time to keep us on track, and she'll give you a little signal when you get close to the 3-minute mark. Okay, so Carmen, who do we have first?
Our first speaker tonight is Rachel Fenty.
My topic's actually on the agenda, so I'm gonna wait.
Okay.
Okay.
Our next speaker is Christina Duffy.
Is transportation on the agenda? I walked in late, I didn't have a chance to see.
It is not.
It's on, okay. Right. I'm actually speaking on behalf of my neighbor who wasn't able to be here because they work late and they wanted me to speak for them about their experience yesterday. If there's time at the end, I'll add some info about mine, but I'll just jump to it. Our son was very excited for his first day of kindergarten. We both work full-time, so planned well in advance to have before and after care for him at his former daycare. We had submitted the request for transport from that facility well in advance of the spring deadline. We communicated with the transportation office multiple times that this was our plan, and requesting details about the buses to and from the facility, a Rising Star Child Care Center. It took multiple emails and calls to finally get the time that the bus would pick up in the morning from that center. We, with the daycare staff, waited for over 30 minutes for the bus. Finally, the daycare director called the school and office, told her that if the bus hadn't showed up by now, it wouldn't, and that it would make more sense for us to drive him to school. Just as we gave up and walked to the car, a bus pulled up at 8:45, and we had to flag it down to stop it because we were no longer standing at the bus stop. The driver said he did not have our son's name on the list. Now, we understood the delay. It was raining and the first day of school, but it was inexcusable that they didn't know my son would be picked up at this stop. The driver graciously said he would take him. We called the school a little while later to confirm he had arrived as well. They confirmed that. We also asked them to please make sure he's on the right bus to daycare in the afternoon. In addition to the aforementioned form and calls and emails this summer, we sent our son with a note from the teacher in his backpack to remind him he should go to Rising Star. I called Rising Star at 1 p.m. and the director stated that no aftercare children arrived at their center despite waiting outside for 45 minutes. They said some moms told them that their kids were mistakenly sent home. I asked my son's neighbor across the street if her son was home. We have the same assigned bus stop. She said yes, and she even got on the bus when it stopped to see if my son was on it, and he was not. So now I realize that my son is somehow lost somewhere for basically an hour. I called the main office at FGL and was put on hold for 20 minutes about where my 5-year-old was because they were unable to locate him. For nearly Finally, nearing 1:30, they stated they located him and he was on the wrong bus, again, inexplicably. The person indicated that this was the teacher's fault. They said he should be at Rising Star soon. They were taking him there now. By 1:45, he arrived at daycare. So he had been on the bus for over an hour and a half. He later got sick, vomiting at the aftercare, which then continued at home, which was more than likely a result of the long bus ride, which he had never been on, and the stress and anxiety the entire day. Later, I was told that he was put on the right bus home, but didn't get up when his name was called. Our daycare said no bus came. If it somehow came more than 45 minutes late, after they then went inside and the driver read his name to get off, what did they expect to do if there was no adult waiting to receive him? This explanation makes no sense, and we are clearly getting different responses. We understand the challenges that staff, teachers, administrative staff, and drivers are facing and not placing blame, but these logistical issues were raised when the Princeton plan was announced over and over again. We were assured it would be fine and seamless. There were always delays and headaches on the first day of school, but this seemed
That's
beyond
fine, Deb.
those normal hiccups. We are horrified that this was his first experience at FGL and in school in general. We will note that he was very excited about his activity time in the classroom. But we don't think any parent should have to go through the fear and anxiety of having no idea where their 5-year-old son is when placed outside of the car and in the hands of the school district. It's simply inexcusable.
Thank you. Just a quick question. Do we have this person's contact info?
Yes.
We do?
Mhm.
They contacted us or?
Yes. I know they contacted the transportation.
Okay.
So,
Okay. We just want to make sure, I want to make sure that we follow up and that we close the loop and we contact this parent, and the board won't know who it is, so we'll have to go through and figure that out.
okay. Is there any way I could speak for myself, not just for them, just very briefly for maybe 1 minute to add on to that?
I'm okay with it.
I know
I think we need to hear
I
from them.
contacted the board.
So, do we have other people signed up for non-agenda items?
Mary, do you know, Joy, are you an agenda item?
I want to discuss how the classes were distributed.
Okay.
It's not agenda.
Is that
That's
on the
okay.
agenda?
So, do you mind if she speaks and then?
Not a problem.
If there's nobody else signed up for non-agenda, you
Perfect.
come right back up and.
Thank you so much.
Yep, absolutely. Come on up, Mary.
Hi, my name's Mary. My daughter is a 5th grader at Furnace Woods. We've had an amazing experience at Furnace Woods. She's made a ton of friends, long-term bonds, and so forth. My question is how was the classes exactly distributed? Because she is one of 4 in her class. She has 22 kids in her class, and those are the only ones from Furnace Woods. So she feels very excluded and isolated. Do we have an answer for that?
So, okay, so I personally can't answer that. I also don't carry that knowledge, but I understand exactly what you're saying. I don't know how they formulated the classes. I do know that they used some sort of formula when they were picking children from different schools. I think the best bet would be for us to have Mr. Cohen give you a call and connect with you on how they came up
Because
with
it
it.
is pretty unfair. My daughter has 3 kids that she knows. One of the other schools has 12.
Yeah.
The other school has 9. I understand our school is a smaller school, but maybe could it be distributed a little bit differently? Like maybe instead of distributing all the kids amongst the 8 classes or whatever it is, maybe they would be 5 or maybe 4, because now they're really isolated, and that's not fair.
Yeah, I totally hear you. I understand. I just feel that I don't particularly have the answer, even though I wish I did and I could solve it for you on the spot. But we'll make sure that Mr. Cohen contacts you to go over this and kind of how they came up with the class structure for this year.
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome. Christina?
Thank you again for letting me speak. I did reach out to everyone yesterday, the email. Alexis, thank you for writing back. My experience was similar to, but not nearly as stressful as my neighbor's experience, but pretty much what happened, same thing. The bus didn't come, didn't come initially, and then another bus went back and forth. I flagged them down and asked them, what do I do? And the bus driver said, I don't know if you're on my route. I don't see your house on my route. I might be back this direction in 20, 30 minutes. I don't know. We're better off taking him to school at that point. So we did. We went to FGL. I was supposed to be part of a meet and greet for all the little kids, which I didn't get to participate in because I had to bring my son, which was fine. It was his first day. And I understand there's hiccups on the first day of school. But Then on the way home, he also was late, and then today was the same thing, about 30 minutes late on the way to school, 30 minutes late on the way back. And again, our name was not on the manifest, or whatever the bus drivers refer to it as. And there was little to no information she could give me, but she was so kind and so patient and took our information down. And, I have been in touch with transportation. I understand they're doing the best they can do too. It just seems that, I don't know if it's the software's fault. I don't know what exactly has happened here to make this so complicated and the time so long, but parents can't be in 2 or 3 places at once. Some parents have to go to work. Some parents have the luxury of staying home. That's not equitable. It's not an equitable position for everybody to be in. So, if it continues, I just don't know what people are going to do. We have after-school programs. I myself have to hire after-school care, so that I can be in 3 places at once to pick up 3 kids at once, 1 child at daycare, 1 child at a private school, and then the bus that's coming home, Hendrick Hudson bus. And, the only way I know it's even on its way is I hear from a neighbor that lives far down, close to Peekskill. It's a big mess. There's not any way to track the bus in real time. We're sort of at just the whim of whenever the bus can arrive and does arrive at our house. So when we have after-school activities in a week that start from now, and I can't be there, and we've invested the time and the money in that, I'm not sure what I'm supposed to do then. So I hope all these hiccups get ironed out, but it's very, very frustrating. It's very confusing. And, I only have one question, and I'm not sure I'm going to ask it correctly because this is based on a previous board meeting from last spring, but I was under the impression, as it was previously indicated, that we received funding federally or from the state for the increased time of bus routes because we were going to be experiencing longer bus routes, because kids from other areas were going to be coming to our school, vice versa. We're all getting shuffled around. We were going to be eligible for additional funding, and I'd like to better understand what that's about. But then I also heard maybe it was had shorter bus routes. Regardless, I'd like more clarification on that to better understand what exactly we're working with there and why that was done. But anyway, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Mr. Hochreiter is going to be in touch with those answers to those questions for you.
Thank you.
Soon. This week? Okay, great. This week.
Thank you.
Okay. Carmen, that's all of the non-agenda.
Yes, it
Okay.
is.
So now we can move on to our consent agenda for the evening. Can I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second. And there's nothing anyone's calling tonight for the consent agenda. We're all good? Yes. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Great. Okay. Moving on to the donations part, we are receiving, Blue Mountain Middle School family has donated a Maxi Net 18-foot portable tennis badminton net, total of $161.96 for the Blue Mountain Middle School to use. That's lovely. That's from a Blue Mountain Middle School family. And the next donation is for the Office of Special Education has received donations in the amount of $200 to be utilized to pay for partial summer camp funding for students with significant handicapping conditions. And this is from the Barbara Katzenstein Scholarship Fund. It's wonderful. Okay, so we need to approve these donations. Can I have a motion to approve the donation or donations? First, I have a second? All in favor? And that brings us to our superintendent's report.
Yes, we wanted to provide the board and the community, those who are here and watching at home, an update on all of the preparation activities that led us to opening school yesterday and some of the meet and greets that we had over the last number of weeks. I'll begin by saying that we've received a lot of communication, not only tonight, but phone calls and emails from parents with questions and concerns and suggestions around the first, I'll say, 2 days of school. And while oftentimes the our transportation system improves over time, we know that it created significant stress and anxiety, not only on the families who are here and who spoke and that we have heard from, but certainly on their children. I first want to address that if any family believes that their children is experiencing stress or anxiety, to please let your school principal know, let your school counselor know. We have a full team of staff who can meet with children and talk to them about their day and help them improve their day. That doesn't change some of the experiences that folks have had. Some of those experiences were situational, some were because of changes the organization made, and some were because it's the first day of school and it usually takes us a while to iron out some of these plans and protocols. I know I spent significant time over the last 2 days, particularly at all 3 elementary schools, observing drop-off, pickup, trying to find ways and brainstorm with principals of different tweaks that can be made. And if you have a child in any one of our 3 elementary schools, I'm sure you received an email, if it wasn't yesterday afternoon, at some point today, about some adjustments that were being made after we lived it for a little while. Doesn't excuse some of the unfortunate experiences folks had, but certainly I hope that in a week from now, we'll reflect back on this and realize that we've moved the needle quite a bit, or we've moved the ball down the field quite a bit. I know in my experience here, and Liz Gilio will speak a little bit later on, some of these things are typical. If the middle school is late loading, then the buses are late getting to the elementary schools, and it's a domino effect. And it sometimes takes us a few days to get this figured out. It takes Liz and her team a few days to identify whether we're going to adjust some bus stops and those sort of things. So while we know that we can do better, I hope that the folks here and folks that have emailed us know that this team is working to improve that experience for everybody. And we work to improve that experience every single year. And that perhaps we have some different hurdles to overcome this year, but no one wants to replicate the experiences that we've heard and that we've read, and we have our commitment to make sure that we correct those. I know Liz will talk a little bit about that later on, but I wanted to make that comment before we jump into some acronyms, and if you're looking at the second slide, what Vinita's going to share some things that already give me anxiety. But we'll start with Vinita Joy, our Director of Technology, who has a lot to update on us, but she's going to pick some highlights. And if there are any questions, I think we'll just do some quick questions while our presenters are here, and then move on to the next one. So, Vinita, thank you.
Good evening, all. So I won't bore you by going through all the bullets. So we were pretty hard working this summer. It's my first school year, beginning with Hendrick Hudson, but my 18th beginning of the school year. It never gets easy. But it was a challenging year. With the Princeton plan, we had to start from ground up, creating those user accounts, moving people into the right distribution groups, but I have an amazing technology team that worked all through summer, very hard. They work as a team, and they stayed positive. We stayed, we made sure that we were all positive all through the summer. Even my son and my daughter came in the last 2 weeks of school helping out with getting the technology ready for the beginning of the school year and getting them some experience for them. Some of the things that we did talked about at the budget time. The computers for the high school are all new. We were able to get those done. We had 3 elementary schools. We started out work in May, June, and July. We got about 70 interactive flat panels, BenQ panels that were installed, ready for teachers to use in the first day of school. One of my major one was network access control system, our wireless system. We had multiple wireless network for guests and BYOD and home networks, so we consolidated all of that to 2 network, one for guests, one for Hendrick Hudson School District. That was a major project that the team took on. We were able to complete that, so we have our high school students bringing their own devices. So they're at the phase of distributing all of these Chromebooks back to the students. We bought about 750 new Chromebooks and deployed them. We collected all Chromebooks back since COVID for 3 years. So we've been through all of that, inventoried everything, and organized them by order expiration date, and we push them back to the students so we don't have to collect them back again every school year. So starting with next school year, only 8th grade devices and 12th grade devices will be collected back. Everybody else will keep their devices for 4 years. What else? So a couple of things on there that you probably remember me talking about about a budget audit last year. Network access control is part of a budget, audit recommendation, and also the 40 authenticator, two-factor authentication for VPN connection is also part of the audit recommendation.
Question.
Yes.
So theoretically, do the kids in, theoretically, do the kids in 6th grade and 9th grade have the newest Chromebooks and still the ones who will have those the longest?
So now, 5th grade has the new Chromebooks. They will keep it until 8th grade, so that's 4 years.
Okay,
9th graders are getting brand new Chromebook, which they can keep until 12th grade.
okay.
So it's usually the Chromebooks are good for 4 years and beyond, but this would be 4 years.
Okay, understood. Thank you.
And I do want to thank Anthony and his team for working with us very closely over the summer. So our team was working right along with them, so to get the classrooms ready, so when they get out, we go in. So I appreciate everybody's hard work and working with the technology team.
Thank you. I have a quick question for you. I think this is all great. Thank you so much for organizing all of this and getting our kids the technology that they need to do well in Excel. I was just curious, are there 15 new laptops for the high school art department? Are those Macs, or are they a different, what are they utilizing?
So the art department at the middle school and the high school are both utilizing Dell Precisions. They're not the same as the teacher computers. They're more for graphic work because they use Photoshop and Adobe Creative Cloud, so it has more graphic cards in there. So it's a little bit more expensive. At the high school right now, they wanted, it was kind of last minute after the budget, so that's why we're getting 15 laptops that they're going to be sharing between the 3 classrooms there. So they're on mobile card.
Oh, great.
I have a question. The Bring Your Own Device program, the students who opt to bring their own device, can they opt out of receiving a Chromebook, or are they issued a Chromebook automatically?
No, at the BYOD is only at the high school.
Right.
So right now, if they complete their Chromebook responsibility form, they can pick up a Chromebook. We're distributing them. If they're not, we do have one-to-one this year for every student. If they're not picking up a Chromebook, we don't know what that percentage is going to be looking like. So for next year, we may not get one-to-one. But they don't have to pick up a Chromebook.
Okay.
They can bring their own, whatever device that they're using, they can connect to a wireless network.
Just maybe if we can get a comparison about how many people are bringing their own device, so
Yeah.
they don't need a Chromebook, so we could save some money there.
Yeah, I can definitely give you the numbers as soon as the Chromebook distribution is done.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think we're good. Anyone else have any questions for Lisa?
No.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Margaret's going to give a staffing update and talk a little bit about class size and some opportunities this year.
So the staffing update is fairly straightforward. We hired 18 instructional staff over the summer. These were replacement teachers, people who either retired or left for another position somewhere. 1 or 2 leave replacements. We had some teachers who are out on maternity leave, etc. 17 teaching assistants have been hired so far. We're still working. And we actually hired a few who then resigned over the course of the summer. So we were in replacement mode for a little while. So that's still a little bit ongoing. The staff is done. Okay, any questions on staff? Okay.
I do. How many more teaching assistants do you plan to hire?
I would
is
say
that fluid?
maybe 2 at each school, and we're still,
So 10.
so that's teaching assistants in place in the buildings. And because of the turnover, we are very concerned. So we have talked about maybe going over a little bit, so we have folks with us as people change their mind about the position. What we're still waiting to do is a few schools are still looking for a permanent substitute. And then we will be onboarding just daily subs that go into our system. So if I call out sick tomorrow, the system automatically contacts a substitute. So this has all been severely impacted like every other industry. So we're having a hard time with that.
So that was my follow-up question. Are we seeing similar turnover as other districts, or is there something?
No one wants these jobs. And then, of course, the rate of pay is always a hindrance.
One of the
Thank you.
one of the issues with the teaching assistants are that a lot of districts hired extra teachers over the last number of years, whether it was with COVID money or the full remote model. And so a lot of teaching assistants who were sitting on a teacher credential have now moved out of that field and into full-time teaching jobs. And we lost a lot to that. That's regional. One employment issue we're not dealing with that many other school districts are certified teachers. We don't have any vacancies in terms of classroom teachers. A lot of other districts still do, but we do not.
That's not to say that it was a challenging hiring season.
Right.
Because it was, and you know, that's a good thing, good for them that they have lots of opportunity to choose from. It's on us to present an attractive environment and an attractive package. The teaching assistant work is very competitive in the region, and we're trying to stay on top of that and try to keep us competitive so that we have people who will want to be here. So that's where we are. We'll keep you updated through the coming board meetings as we settle the rest of that hiring. Okay. Thanks, Greg. Okay, so average class sizes. Thank you to the board for last year agreeing to reduce class size for the next 1 or 2 years while we settle in to Princeton Plan, and these numbers certainly are a recognition of that. The pre-K numbers are actually state mandated, so we cannot go over 17 without adding an additional teaching assistant to a classroom. And even at that, I believe we would be capped at 20. But the rest of the numbers are there, and they are, I think, pretty good. It's nice to see kindergarten hovering at 20. It's lovely to see 5th grade hovering at 22. So every grade saw about a 2 student reduction in their class size across the board, and that's, I think a great thing for us. And fingers crossed, we'll see what it looks like going forward. Any questions? Okay.
Can you explain, just looking at these numbers here, I know everyone at home can see them necessarily, but if you had split, because kindergarten's higher cap, so we're at 20, and we have a pre-K, the state maxes us at 17, and then we have 9 sections at 17.7 in first grade. If you just had added a teacher, that would have brought kindergarten down to 17 or 18, correct?
Right.
So the class cap for kindergarten is still higher, even though the state mandated number for pre-K is lower?
Remember that kindergarten is not a mandated grade. It's very odd the way the state is working, and it's been like that for years.
Yep.
So we have this wonderful UPK system, which in places like New York City and some of the big 5 includes 3-year-olds, but not here. They create their own guidelines, and they've kind of, annoyingly to me, because I'm a kindergarten teacher, forgotten about kindergarten, but our cap in K pre-Princeton Plan was 22. In my humble opinion, that's way too large a number. 20 is about where we should be. And the way it was set up initially in board policy was kindergarten at 22 and then first grade down to 20. I understand the historical reference for that is that kindergarten has a full-time teaching assistant. But this year we were asked to give the first grade teachers a full-time teaching assistant as well. So it will, I think, be something that we'll all pay a little attention to as we continue to make decisions going forward.
We said we were going to keep class sizes lower for the next 1 or 2 years. So does that mean in 2 years, these class sizes are anticipated to be back up to kindergarten 22, first, second, third, fourth, and fifth? What would be that?
So that would be your decision, because that's a board policy. Every grade that you see would go up by approximately 2 or 3 students per class, which is the current board policy that we kind of stepped aside of. But then also, that's driven by demographics. So if enrollment continues to go down, it may not be an issue. So we'll just have to keep watching it.
Yeah, and Stephanie, just so you know, we start tracking our enrollment. Well, we have a live spreadsheet, we're tracking it all the time, but we really get into it in terms of staffing in February and start projecting. That's usually when kindergarten registration starts, or we try to identify those students. Part of our budget presentation, usually it's in early March, we give our current reality in terms of this data and then what it would look like next year as everyone moves up a grade, and then based on those caps. So we'll have better data in about 6 months, and then we'll be able to project a little bit more staffing.
Thank you, everybody.
Are you next too?
One more.
Last one, okay. So just some things coming our way in 22-23 that I think we're pretty excited about sharing, if anybody doesn't know that this is happening. In Frenchie Lindsay, which is now our pre-K 1 school, we are really thrilled to add a kitchen classroom. And thank you to Anthony and his staff for helping us physically get that organized. Thank you to Beth Gruber, who manages the Entergy grant, and that's where this funding came from. Having a kitchen classroom to work in enhances so many things for kids. I'm sure all of you at home as moms know when your kids want to cook with you. There's measurement, there's direction, there's tons of language going on. So it's really a beneficial opportunity, and we're excited to get that up and running. And then we're really thrilled to be able to add STEM as a special in all 3 elementary schools. Our students will not only have science taught twice a week as a special, but they will also have a STEM class. With Benita's guidance, we purchased a program called Codalicious. So they will have some codings, we'll meet the computer standards, possibly for the first time. And that particular program, coding, as you see in the next line, continues on through 8th grade. So we were able to bring that program up into the Unified Arts rotation for our middle school kids. So they will have a really strong STEM experience K-8 as they get to the high school, and then have an opportunity to really think hard about things like PLTW and science research, and have, I think, a better background about who they are as a learner and what they really are excited about to make some choices for those advanced classes. So hopefully we're on the right pathway, and we have really great teachers excited and engaged in this work for our kids. So we'll keep tabs on this, and we'll come back and present and invite them to share, because they're very excited about this opportunity as well. Executive functioning, which we've talked a lot about over the past few years and is so critically important, especially coming out of COVID, is in place for all 6th graders as part of their natural course load. And we're very excited about that every 6th grader will have that opportunity. We'll work with Lisa and her team to see what we can bring down with regularity to the elementary students as well. We just had a reading webinar the other day with a physician who was talking to us about medical matters related to reading struggles, and he kept bringing up executive functioning in his presentation and how important executive functioning is to the merger of all of the things the brain has to do in order to be an average, efficient reader. So that's exciting for middle school. And then at high school, we are going out this year with the Seal of Civic Readiness. That's a really interesting opportunity for our high school students, and Christine Lupian, who is our social studies instructional leader, has a wonderful team put together. We started this work over the summer. We are partnering with BOCES because one of actually the social studies point person at BOCES is on the state team, so that's a valuable asset for us. He also guided several of the neighboring communities in the pilot last year, which we opted out of to get a chance to see what happened. But North Salem participated, Arlington participated, there's a third district I'm forgetting, it might be White Plains. So we spent some time with BOCES over the summer figuring out what this needs to look like and how do we build our program. I think Christine has amazing ideas about where this could go. At some point, not in year one, there's a middle school component of this and we will bring the middle school on board. We're most excited about the capstone projects where kids pick an interest of theirs in the social field and then we connect them with people to help them do some work. Think of it as science research, but on the social studies and civic side of things. So we're very excited about that, and I think she's got the right people in place to help us lead that, and maybe at some point we invite Christine and her team to come talk about what they're doing with that this year. But I'm happy that we finally are getting this up and going. I think it's an important partner for some of the other jazzier classes and opportunities that we have for our kids. We'll like the Seal of Biliteracy, they get a designation on their diploma that this is what they participated in. They will have something via the capstone that they can share with a college to say, this is what I engaged in over the course of my studies. So we think this is a good way to go with our kids and we're excited for it. Okay. Good.
Just about the kitchen classroom, so that's in Frank G.
Yes.
And that's for 4-year-olds and 5-year-olds?
That's for the whole school, so pre-K, K, and 1.
Okay. One classroom?
One classroom.
What are the logistics of that? So is there a sign-up sheet?
There is a sign-up sheet. So we are very lucky that Lynn Masterson, who is our AAS math teacher at the primary school, is a trained chef. And she is over the moon that we have a kitchen. So she's very busy organizing what this will look like. I believe she's speaking at Monday's faculty meeting about the sign-up process and the blocks of time that will be available. I think she's already got all her recipes picked out. I suspect as the math teacher, she will be utilizing that space quite a bit. And she's given me my grocery list to go to Walmart and buy some of the basic supplies to put in the classroom, so yes.
Thank you.
Are we looking to do something like this in the 2-3 building, or is just, because?
We just targeted Frank G. I mean, at some point down the road, I don't know if there's space available. We clearly had a gift in terms of the funding for the appliances, et cetera.
I'm wondering what the decision was to put it in the pre-K 1 building as opposed to the 2-3 building?
It's just such an amazing experience for the young kids to do this. The opportunities that exist there as beginning learners in just picking up that spoon and stirring something and understanding what step comes first and what comes after, and then putting something in the oven and seeing it come out and we can eat it. So, yeah. Doesn't mean we couldn't ever put it anywhere else, but this was a good starting place.
And then we have 2 days at STEM special in the STEM room, and then the Codalicious is in addition to that, like a third day?
No, so both curriculums, both the Science 21 curriculum and the Codalicious curriculum actually blend nicely because they are not every day full year, the way we teach math or reading or something like that. It is, we worked with the Codalicious founders to actually tailor it to the weeks that we had available to us, and they scaled the curriculum to fit that and align with the New York State standards. And then we worked with the BOCES science people who guided us to how many days in each unit of study for science for each grade level would be appropriate given the time frame. So we feel pretty good about where we are, and we'll know more as we go through it. If we feel we need more, we'll add, and if we feel we're pressed, we'll figure out how to manage that.
Okay, and then I see that we have coding and STEAM at the middle school. That's great. Executive functioning. I know that you and I had discussed a greenhouse there. I know that's an ask there, and I think we do have the funding for it, so I would love to see that.
I just ran into the science teachers at the middle school the other day who asked if should they be asking more? And I said, well, here's the thing with that. We do have funding for that. But in fairness to Anthony and his amazing team, they had a little bit on their plate this year. So I mentioned to the science teachers that maybe we would let them catch their breath before we went forward with that plan. But Anthony is aware of it. He was on many emails with Beth and myself about what we wanted, what they're trying to do with their sustainability program. They're very excited about it. I think it will come, but I think, we just had to kind of put it in the right pecking order, so to speak.
Yeah, my thing is I just want, that would really fit there, and if we could get it there sooner, then more kids benefit from it, so.
Okay, thank you.
Jenna, you could have.
I was just, so from the Indian Point funding, there was sort of funds for each building, basically, right? So the funds for Frank G were the kitchen. I think the greenhouse was for Blue Mountain. Can you just review it one more
Sure,
time?
so the kitchen went to Frank G, and Buchanan Verplank chose a kiln for their art classroom, and I believe keyboards for their music lesson, their general music program. So that'll be really nice, because I think I don't want to misspeak, because Juliet is the master of this. I believe it's second grade that will have some experience with the keyboards, and I think that's wonderful. So there's that. And then at Furnace Woods, we went with robotics. So Meg Boyle, who's the STEM teacher there, has been working with Benitha and with Josh and picked out some robotics enhancements. That will get even more full-blown next year, but at least she's got a start on it.
Okay, so those have been rolled into the curriculum this year. So
Yep.
the keyboards and the kiln.
I couldn't tell you what it looks like in terms of when do they get to the
Agreed.
keyboard or what unit of study brings the kiln into play, but yes, everything will be used this year.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Sorry.
That's okay.
There is an existing kiln at Frank G. Lindsay.
Yes,
Are they gonna utilize that there as well?
I certainly hope so.
Okay. Because otherwise, could we not move it?
No, I would love to see our, you and I have talked art a lot,
Yes.
so, I understand what you do, et cetera. I would love to see our kids at all levels work in all mediums, and especially at that age, the fine motor ability of manipulating clay or whatever it is they end up firing, yes. So, yes, we did move it with that intention.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you, Margaret.
You're welcome.
Hey everybody, I also want to thank Anthony and his team. I have to say, we had summer program, we had 5 classrooms this summer, and they did not miss a beat. Getting us set up, getting us moved, getting us in the right spot. So again, thank you for everything. And Liz with her transportation and staying on top of the summer. I know the start of the school year was difficult, but she did an amazing job with our summer program. So I'm not going to read you slides. We hired a nurse in the high school. We think we have a winner. We are so excited. She's been training for the last 2 weeks, and I've heard nothing but positive, so that's very exciting to us. And she's bilingual. We've hired a new social worker and psychologist. Of course, we're competing Downey County, so we lost a couple of people Downey County. And Dr. Heather Wynn, was able to get an administrative job, so we're very proud of her. So she did leave us this year as well. And we do have a new school counselor this K2. As far as program updates, you see our ABC enrollment. We have about 30, I think I counted 30, and there's a couple more that we're waiting to place of out-of-district students, and about 50 of our own students in our school, 12-1-1s and our 8-1-2s. So we're pretty impressed with how far the teachers have come, and breaking them into 2 grade levels actually gives the teachers a little bit more time to go deeper and not as wide, because they had 3 grade levels at one point. So our teachers have really been excited to take on new curriculum. The Sailor 2 students this year are in a 3-section schedule, I'm going to say. So they do an internal internship, they do an external internship, and they have functional skills. So they go to Premier, they work at Premier, they work at Avelinos, they work at the Hen Hood Free Library. We have students going to Old Navy, they work in Old Navy. So Christina Field and Lauren Price are our 2 work-based people that go out with them, or they work here with them in the school. And our job is to get them as independent as we can, so they're not sitting on mom and dad's couches. The other thing that's not on there that I forgot about until Jeremy and I started brainstorming was the CDOS program. So Margaret and I have been discussing a CDOS program since I've been here. And those are the career credentials that students can actually start in middle school. And it's really working for different paths of graduation. It doesn't always have to be a Regents diploma. It doesn't always have to be, they don't have to go to CTE to get it. So I've given it to one of the high school counselors to start developing. She has partnered with our regional representative from the state, and Christina Field, our work-based learning person. And we are starting that program working from the bottom up, hoping to get it ready for next year to roll it out for 9th graders. Once we get that established, then we'll start getting some internships. And Joe and I have already had conversations a couple of years ago with the Montrose Business Association and how we can help our kids start to move into that path. Not every kid needs to go to college. Not every kid wants to go to college, and that's okay. So we've been working on that. The middle school we've put a lot of time and effort last year into the middle school with doing some PD. This year, our small classes at the middle school are getting some upgrades to the curriculum. We're learning how to tailor our curriculum to the needs of the students and not just using the whole curriculum. And I have a consultant coming in to work with our teachers. And we have started a SAIL program. So we have those in-between kids that are not alternately assessed. That means they don't follow the same Regents track. And then we have our state assessed. But we always have those in-between kids that we really can't figure out what would be the best track. So we're starting in 6th grade, hoping to build a bunch of skills. So we're offering 2 reading and 2 math specials. 2 math classes, and then they do science and social studies every other day in 6th grade. So they're getting double reading and writing and double math to kind of build the skills to hopefully next year either go into the 15-1 or the ICT classes. I don't think I have anything else to share. Yes, please.
I asked a lot of questions about acronyms.
Yeah.
So can you share what C? They don't
The
have-
CDOS, the Career Developmental
And
Occupational.
you said they don't have to go to CTE?
I'm sorry, Career Tech, so BOCES.
Thank
So BOCES has a Career Tech, but they can actually start in 7th grade in our BOCES. And we did attempt that the year COVID hit us. We sent, I think I sent 4 8th graders? 6 8th graders, or 6, 7th and 8th graders up to kind of get the disenfranchised student interested in something to keep their attention in school. And we did really well until then COVID hit us, and we never recovered. And I don't really think we were the only school that sent kids from middle school, which was kind of exciting. But kids can actually start as young as 7th grade going up there. We have not piloted that again since we've been back because we've been trying to get our feet under us from COVID.
Thank you.
Yes.
So I just happened to notice, I think the town of Cortland has a program that's similar for kids 14 and older, like for job placements.
Mhm.
I don't know if there's any partnership that could be had.
Well, we have a lot of partnerships out there. So Christina and I work with this gentleman named Joe Conti. And actually Jeremy and I were having a conversation before this too. So we have this gentleman, we're gonna do a transition fair in the high school open house. Transition, whether you're going to the next level, whether you're going to college, whether you're going to a work-based learning, whatever you're doing. So Christina is actually working with this work-based organization to get this ready for us for the fall. That being said, he has hooked us up with White Plains Linen. He has taken us to all these different places and got us connections to help us because we really have to be careful because our kids have to be 18 or older to work in some of these places. And we have to make sure they have the skills. So we have to train here before we can put them out. But we definitely have been working with a lot of community resources and they have been so giving and so caring and they want to take our kids on. Premier has been fabulous. We're hoping to get the kids in the cafe. Avelinos have been absolutely over the top. They have really supported our kids. When we had unified basketball night, he brought pizza for every one of the players. I mean, it was just, they have just given back to us as much as we've gotten from them. Yeah.
So how do these enrollment numbers compare to last year for these programs?
As far as our in-district, we've always been full. Our out-of-district, we have gone up between 7 and 12 kids. And that's because we took one at the high school this year. We normally don't have kids at the high school. But one of the smaller high schools reached out to me. They had a student they wanted to place, wasn't ready to come back to their own district. We met the student, fabulous student. We're very excited to have him. So we took a high school kid this year. I think we took 2 middle school kids. So it really depends. We lost 2 tuition kids last year and 1 graduated, but we have 7 to 12 more this year than we did last year.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Question for you. What's the breakdown of the ICT sections in each grade, K through 5?
What do you mean the breakdown?
How many
sections?
sections are in each grade?
Yeah. So kindergarten has 2, First grade has 2, second grade now has 2, third grade has 1, fourth grade has 2, and fifth grade has 3. And some of those are a mixture. Remember, we don't just have ICT anymore. We have ICT full day, and we have one section in first that's, we have both kindergartens are full day, one section in first is full day. Fourth grade, we have one section full day. Fifth grade, we have one section full day. The rest are ICT skills. So they're in the gen ed program for 2 hours a day, and they're out in a small class for 2.5 hours a day. That's to do a lot of front loading, a lot of pre-skills, reteaching, and prepping them and doing some IEP work. So that being said, but we also have kids that do an hour. They might need an hour of ELA and that's it, and then they go back unsupported in the classroom. So it really depends, but fifth grade and fourth grade have always been our larger numbers. We did have to add a second person to second grade this year, but we didn't have to hire, which was nice because our resource and consultant teacher numbers dropped. So we were able to share, and Luann Bronski went into our second grade. So we didn't have to hire, but we had so many kids move in. And then when we went to the plan, the Princeton plan, everybody was accepting services, which makes my heart feel so good because the kids are getting what they need. And I understand you don't want to leave your home district, your home building, but now the kids are getting the services they need, and we're going to see a lot of growth.
So we saw a lot more families take advantage of the ICT model now that we're in the Princeton
Yes.
plan.
Yeah. And I think that's why I was so, yes, let's do this, because I was being greedy about special ed.
Do we anticipate having to go up at all this year? Like, are we looking at classifications?
Oh, you don't know
Going
that.
forward?
We never know that. Because
Okay.
there's so many, here's the thing, we had 40 kids come in for CPSE. We expected a lot more in special classes. We didn't see that. A lot of them came in related services. So we may see a big declassification of K next year. We don't know until we get them in. Because they call this Generation C right now. Our kindergartens are Generation C. The Generation C will be the next 3 years. And until we get them in front of us, we don't know.
All right, and then, so do you have resource room in each building now? Have you, because of ICT
You don't
or
need
not?
resource room like we did before. So where we have it is at BB and Furnace Woods. So you don't need it right now next door, and if we do, we have a fail-safe for it. Margaret and I partnered together. I have a special ed teacher that was on special assignment. So Margaret and I worked out a schedule that she works with me for 2 hours a day, and then the rest of the day she works with Margaret's teams. Okay? Yeah.
So, sorry, this is just so interesting. So it's actually for both of you. So Jeremy actually sent us some information about, just the loss of reading based on COVID, especially with young readers. And is there any opportunity for any after-school programs for kids to sign up to do reading programs? Just
I will
out
say
there.
this. I will say this, and I know Margaret's going to echo it. You will not find that you see growth in after school. The kids are burnt by then. I have certain families that they need that after school time, and I work with them. We figure that out.
Okay.
But we have developed a lot more reading programs in our district. We have the Program Against Failure, PAF. We have that. Every one of my special ed teachers have either been trained level 1 and level 2 and doing practicum. So over the next year, everybody will be trained and have a practicum. And that's just not it's more of a 2, 3 and up. That goes all the way to the high school. We have SRA now, and yes, that's the basic phonics, but I will tell you, our kids have grown leaps and bounds with that. We have found that since we switched from ICT to ICT skills, our kids have grown tremendously. And that's why Margaret modeled the bridge after what we were doing, because we saw such huge growth. But by the time these little guys get through school at 2:30, 3:30, it's too much, and they're not retaining anything. The more we can give them during the day, and the more our MTSS, our multi-tiered systems, can be appropriate for kids, and that's exactly what this PD was. If we get strong reading instruction younger, we won't see this reading deficit.
So do you think as over time, by the time maybe a kindergartner, a current kindergartner gets to third grade and they're taking the ELA state tests, they're gonna theoretically do
That's a whole
better
different
than what? So
conversation.
how are you monitoring the metrics? Like, what is the metric?
So we are required by the state to have a benchmark assessment system in place that assesses every single kid, fall, winter, spring. In addition to that, and it has to be multiple measures. It can't be one tool that says, oh, you're no good, or oh, terrific. And honestly, at the testing grades, the state test does play a role, but even the state is cautionary about that. Because a kid got a 1 on a test, means he had a bad day, possibly. Possibly it means they need help. You have to look at other markers. So I think we put the system in place 7 years ago, and it hasn't let us down in terms of identifying kids. I think what we saw actually before COVID, we stopped the after-school program because we were not seeing any bang for our buck. Instead, what we tried to focus on, and I think it has helped us, again, was going along with what Lisa just said, keeping kids after school is a punishment for the kid. So you take a kid who already is feeling like, I can't do what she can do, and now I have to stay after school because of that. And what's the motivation to be successful, or even to come? So attendance wasn't great, we weren't seeing progress in the kids, and so we said, we need to do something different while we have them during the school day. And so we started to look at more specialized training for the reading teachers who receive them. We beefed up our reading and writing PD in the elementary core classrooms. And then as a result of COVID, I moved to put Bridge, we call it Bridge because we don't know what else to call it. I am not a proponent of retention. So it was a tricky situation coming back from COVID, and in some degree it still is, because we have kids who literally did not go to school. We have several students in the district who did not go to school at home or in person during COVID. So imagine what they lost in that year of gapping. And so we can't come back and classify them because it isn't that they can't do it, it's that they've not had yet instruction to be able to take it on. So now we have kids maybe in 3rd grade who left conventional schooling in 1st grade. That's a big gap to make up. So the Bridge program allowed us to keep the kid in the grade level, not leave the kid back, because it's not their fault that this happened, and yet pull them out and intensify the instruction in the grade level skills, maybe with different books, until the kid could be caught up enough to return to the classroom. And we saw that work, enough so that the principals asked if we could repeat it this year. We don't need extra staff to do so because we did reduce our numbers of kids going to AIS reading. So with our current reading staff, we were able to say, one teacher takes the kids who are being pulled out, the other teacher works a Bridge program in the morning and in the afternoon. And we will, honestly, we keep tabs on this. We meet regularly with one another, individually, in groups, to make sure that what we're doing is the right thing to do, because if it's not, we have to change direction. So far, so good. The majority of our kids, though, who were really behind the 8 ball are behind the 8 ball because they did not attend school for whatever reason during the shutdown.
So I think I need a Bridge program for the board. What is not being a proponent of retention mean?
Retention's a very dicey conversation. Why is a kid unsuccessful? Do I even know what caused the kid to not be able to take on? Leaving a kid back, I'm sorry.
Oh, that's okay, thank you, now I'm good.
Right, so that's always a tricky thing to do. And again, do I punish a child and hold them back? And what will I do for that child differently if they do 4th grade again?
Yep.
So there are a lot of questions around that.
Thank you.
Did we find that we were doing more evaluations on students after COVID? Did we end up classifying a lot more kids than we thought we would? And is that one of the reasons that the 4 or 5 numbers are a little, 5th grade might be
5th grade has
higher?
always been high.
Okay.
There's a large number of students there. 2nd grade, we had one section when we started the summer, and then I had 3 or 4 referrals, but we also get kids that move in.
Right.
So every time you get a kid moved in, you have to take that IEP for 30 days. We can evaluate if they didn't have an evaluation, but if they've already had the evaluation, we're just gonna keep going with that within the last year or 2. But we're finding that the COVID generation, the kids in kindergarten now, I went in a classroom today and you can tell there's 2 kids that we have that have never been in school. Preschool, nothing. They had no related services before, and it shows. So we have a lot of work to do in the next, setting up the next 2 weeks, setting them up for success. So there's going to be always referrals, no matter what we do, because there may be a parent that feels that their child is not being successful because of X, Y, and Z, and they want us to test. We do the best we can to say, okay, let's follow the MTSS, let's do this,
but we can't tell them no, right? So you have to test them. It's a very lengthy process that we put kids through, but it's the right thing to do. But we should also be doing our tiered interventions. The only thing that I want to add to Margaret's thing is that we do have executive functioning very prominent in the elementary schools. So our school counselors have all been trained. Our new school counselor actually started the training, but we will be doing more training with our mental health people that do a lot of this. And our school counselors push in, remember, they push into the classrooms. So while teachers are doing SEL, they're also doing the executive functioning with them at the same time. So we have been doing that. We did have it at the high school at one point. I'm hoping to get it back. But I'm hoping that we're starting it younger and younger, because we started at the middle school and high school, that we won't have to have it as much at the high school, but it is still a need for students.
And I just want to clarify one thing, like, when you're saying after school as a punishment, you're just talking about assigned reading, not the fun after-school thing that we've always done. Okay, I just want to clarify that.
And that actually, there is a lot of research that those opportunities can actually help close gaps. Because they're learning and they're not like, read this page.
Okay.
They're reading in service of an activity they love, right? So.
Yeah, that's why I wanted to clarify it.
Yes. No, yes.
Thank you. Thank you. Facilities, right?
Bring back our man of the hour.
We've got our MVP, Anthony Merlini, approaching the podium.
A lot of people that make that big. So we just want to bring up some highlights of some other things that we did over the summer to improve, our facilities and make them look better for when the staff and students return. The high school, we did some carpet removal, and this is an ongoing process in a lot of buildings where we're changing from carpet to floor tile in a lot of different spaces, a lot of buildings aging and things like that. We always like to paint. Replacing doors, hardware, there's always general maintenance going on in the buildings, right? Things never change, there's always damage, things that got to be fixed, things with wear or tear. Middle school, we talked about it a little bit. We're going to design a room dedicated for the ABC Sailor program. So there's two spaces over there. They're going to eventually we're going to connect the two, just like we have over here. But that space was a big undertaking, and half it was done by an outside vendor, and half it was done by my crew. So even though they're getting the buildings ready and doing all those other things, they're taking on other projects as well inside the building. So they had to put we set up so we have a little kitchen area, and then we have a little laundry area, and we have another table that we have to put in there for a task table and things of that nature for the beginning. We did some roof repairs. We had some repairs done. We have some more to go at the middle school. We have some warranty work, and just some general cleanup on the outside, some overgrowth, some dead branches and things like that. So some more to go, and we'll continue on that process. Cambridge Plank. We had some grant money, so we did a bunch of things over there. We did some hallways, the carpet. We changed all those out and went to floor tile in those hallways, and it creates this dynamic look when you go in there. It's just totally different from what it was like before. And then my head custodian, he painted the hallways in the two hallways. We replaced ceiling tiles in that building, replaced a section of the sidewalk that we've been trying to get to for the last number of years. And then we're in the process of installing playground swings in the rear, some facilities out there. FGL, we had some bathrooms that we had to do some repairs in there in the back kindergarten wing, and we're going to continue with that through. I've been working with Dr. Lefevre on that, trying to get the right faucets and a couple other little things for those individuals there, because they're kind of like small, so they can't always push the buttons on, and they have the old style, and we have to change. We're trying to change out the faucets, find the right setup for them as well. Again, some more tree trimming, cleaning up some old growth, and the kitchen classroom that we talked about a little bit earlier. Furnace Woods, we did a lot of painting in the hallways, changing the look of that building as well, cleaning up different things, and some whiteboard installations to lock the classrooms in there. So again, the general maintenance things, just trying to get the building ready. There's other little things that we do along the way here and there that aren't on this thing, but those little things. But these are the couple of the highlights. And again, we talked about everybody's saying that my guys are great, but it's great working for all these people and working with beneath this team and the understanding, the patience, but allowing my guys to get through the building, do what they have to do. And not everything can happen overnight, and it takes a lot of patience on their part, so I can get in there and my guys can do what they have. So I have a great team, and they make me look good, but they're busting their tails out there doing what they gotta do, so I really appreciate all that. You guys allow me to do what I gotta do, so, yeah, thank you.
Does anybody have any questions for Anthony?
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm gonna ask, I would love to see the finished products, especially at the elementary school.
Yes.
I mean, we got to walk through here in August, and this room looks completely different, and it's fantastic. I'm so glad we're in here for this meeting. Hopefully everyone at home can hear us better this way, but I would love to do that. I think everybody would like to get that on the calendar. And then, I have one other question for
It's a
you.
dramatic change. I walked through today with Enrique, and we were looking at
Yeah.
a couple of spaces, and some of the comments were, like, I can't believe that this is the same space we walked through several weeks, not even, just a week ago.
Mhm.
So it's amazing the transformation.
And let me answer that. We're trying to determine when we may get a first draft of the building condition survey.
Okay.
That architectural, state ed mandated evaluation of our facilities to see if we could do two at once, right? We know we want to go see the elementary school, see the after. Can we schedule that in the next 4 to 6 weeks, hoping that we'll have a draft of the VCS done? Because you'll see two things. You'll see a finished product of all of Anthony's team's work, and then some of the recommended improvements. So we're waiting to hear back from our architects to see what that timeline would be. If it's going to be too far into the spring, we'll just, we'll pick some times and dates and go see the 3 elementaries, and then do the school tours for the VCS later. We're waiting for more info to see if we can do two things at once.
Okay. We've heard from a couple parents that there's some detail work outside that still needs to get done. Is there a timeline on that?
My guys have already started on it.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you. And then, do we have I know the carpeting in some of the buildings is in better condition than others. Do we have like a master schedule of when those things will be replaced as time goes on?
It's hard to say because it's all budget driven.
Okay.
So a lot of it, I work with the principals in all the buildings to see, what classrooms I can get into over the summer to do what I need to do. So if I have the opportunity to do it during the school year, we'll try to do it during the school year. There are limiting factors to that, whether we have students in the building, whether we have environmental issues that we have to deal with, all those kinds of things play into it. And sometimes when we have the environmental aspect, it inflates the cost. So it's really, give or take, we got to see where we are with everything. But I try to do several classrooms in the buildings that need it. So whether it's painting, whether it's carpet, whether it's a refresh of the ceiling tile, etc. And the other thing to note, we are in the middle of our process, or somewhere thereabouts towards the end, of doing the EPC. So we are trying to finalize that so we can do that construction over the spring and into the summer next year. And that primary crux of that is going to be changing the lighting in a lot of the buildings. So a lot of it going from the T8s that we have now, we're going to be going to LED lighting to improve that quality of light inside.
So what is EPC?
Energy performance contract.
So there are layers to this. I guess, Erica, what I want to say is with our energy performance contract and the building condition survey, and then local interests, meaning local what we want to have done. We don't want to do anything to a school that might get upended through the energy performance contract or the building condition survey. So it not only becomes about timing, it becomes about what potential project could cover that cost at a fraction of the cost rather than 100% out of our pocket.
So I know in the spring, the board voted to spend additional funds on a few repairs throughout the district. Is all of that work complete?
About half, about 50%.
Okay.
We have the Frank T. Lindsay, where one of the things was doing the window panels. That's supposed to happen in the fall. It was just two things. One, the contractor has the time, and I got a better price by doing it in the fall than trying to squeeze it into the summer when all the contractors have all the heavy work. So it's one of those things that they can come in towards the end of the day after 3 o'clock and just do certain sections of the building. So I got a better price by pushing it off to the fall. So we'll do that one, and then we'll be about 75% done. And then we have the last thing that's lingering is the roof work. We started some of it in the middle school. I think we have one of them fixed, but the other section is on the foam roof, which I have a warranty on. So I'm trying to work with the company to do it under warranty, so it won't be as as pricey as us just doing it.
Okay. And then all the concrete work was done at BV, you were to do
Yeah,
the back
so-
stairs?
That's also, again, we pushed that to the fall to get a better price as
Okay.
well.
The front's done.
The
But
front's done, but the back
front-
stairs.
Yeah, the front is done, so then when you have that walking up where the majority of the traffic is, that was done
Okay.
first to get that out of the way.
Okay. Thank you.
Oh, absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Okay, Liz?
Good evening, everybody. So, this was a tough start. It was, I've been here for 30 years. I drove a bus for the district for 20 and my 10 years here as the transportation supervisor. And, every first day is difficult. This year's first day was compounded by Princeton Plan rollout and rain. And, a lot of parents just drove the first day, which a lot of parents like to do. I knew in the morning when I, was at the bus garage and I was leaving to go to my office and I couldn't get down 9A, that it was going to be a difficult day. Traffic for the high school was backed up north and south on Albany Post Road. South, it was backed up past the Montrose Firehouse, and northbound it was backed up past, the Buchanan Home Center. I couldn't get buses out of Kings Ferry Road because there were so many cars. Today was a better day. The difficulties that we're having are in the afternoon are, when one school lets out late, it's a domino effect because my high school buses are my middle school buses. My middle school buses are my elementary buses. My Furnace Woods buses, I have drivers that then do either Frenchie, Lindsay, or BV. So if one school lets out late, it's just, everybody's affected. I'm definitely, looking at and going over different bus routes. I know I have to, we know we have to make some changes, we have to make some adjustments. But we have already, since last week, done over 187 bus changes. And primarily those changes are in the elementary school. And why? Well, because kids need to go to, after school care, before school care. Their sitter isn't on their bus route, so now we're changing the bus route. We had, since the beginning of summer, we've had almost 100 kids move into the district. Today alone, we had 8 new students move in. So, we have to kind of I know that parents are, frustrated with, with my department because, I put my babysitter note in last week and how come I'm still waiting to, for my kid to go to the babysitter? Because one, it was due in the spring and I understand that, sometimes life changes and I get that. But my priority has to be getting those children on buses that don't have buses at all. All right, I can't have somebody who moves into the district have to wait, a week or 2 weeks to get onto a bus to get their child to school. Really the average ride time right now, I know that, for some kids it's not 32 minutes. But that's what our average morning ride time is 32 minutes. And when you look at what I'm covering the entire district. I am picking up kids from the far reaches of the district and bringing them down to this end of the district to go to school. In the afternoon, the average time is 33 minutes. Yes, are there runs that are over that time limit? Absolutely. Those are the routes that I'm looking at to make changes to see if I can make adjustments so that we don't have our kids on the buses that long. Right now, the ridership isn't, we don't have 100% of our kids, of course, riding. And as I look at those, I can see, I can't, the law is I have to have, every child has to have a seat. So I can't drop kids off of a bus, even if a parent sends me a note and says, my kid's never gonna ride. I'm gonna drive my kid back and forth every day. I can't legally drop them off a bus because if there's an emergency, I have to know that there's a bus for that child. So, so right now the drivers still, day 2, are going to every stop and making sure whether or not those children are there. Because there's nothing worse for a parent is to be at a bus stop and the bus drive by and they're like, you know, the bus never stopped, or the bus never came, I didn't see the bus, how come the bus driver didn't see me? So those are all things that, you know, we navigate through that the first week or so of school. You know, some routes I'm changing around to, you know, we're having a problem getting, you know, some kids to school on time, not at the elementary level, but at my middle school level. So, you know, adjustments have to be made, and, you know, it's just all part of the, you know, the first week, you know, pain. It really is, and I'm sorry that it's like that, but, you know, I've talked to all of my, you know, I have a number of people. I'm the, you know, president of the local chapter of, you know, NIAP, and I talk to my, you know, my friends in Peekskill and Croton and, you know, the other school districts, and they all had a difficult first day too. You know, it's really just the nature of the beast, and I'm sorry that it's like that, and unfortunately, you know, especially for kindergarten parents who this is their child's first experience on a bus, it doesn't make it easy for them. It'll get better. It always does get better. It's not going to be the same, you know, 2 weeks from now that it was yesterday. And we saw a vast improvement between yesterday and today. You know, the drivers, it's for them, you know, they've been going out. They got their bus runs, you know, 2 weeks before school opened, and they were going out and driving and calling and saying, hey, you know, I'm not quite sure about this, and, you know, can I go, you know, so, you know, they know. But for them too, this is new to them. We redid 87 bus runs for this school year. We don't usually do that. We usually have the same bus stops, the bus goes in the same direction, and for some of them, the guy's been driving that bus run for 30 years. All right? This year, everything's new. They may have the same high school run and the same middle school run, but their elementary runs are completely different. So it's a matter of them adjusting and acclimating to the change as much as it is for ourselves. But it'll get better.
I have not
Go ahead.
I have not a question per se, but kind of a comment, and I'm sure you'll agree with me. In years past, as a parent, I've always looked at my child's bus information and then kind of took it for granted that bus would pull up and just stop and off would come one of my kids. But this year, being out on the road and seeing all the traffic and the buses and every bus going every which way, I think it's really important, and this might have been communicated, but hopefully people are listening right now. I think it's really important that parents check their child's bus number. I saw 2 parents jump on a bus and say, where's so-and-so? But it wasn't their bus. So I think it's just really important that people pay attention to what time their bus is coming, and hopefully it's close to that, and the actual number. Because there might be a BV bus dropping off 10 feet to the right, but your kid's coming from FGL. So I just wanted to kind of highlight that, because I think that's important information.
Right. And I know at the elementary level, they feel that it helps the children because of their, you know, difficulty with remembering numbers.
I know.
But when a parent calls and says, my kid rides the brown bus, and I'm like, I don't have a brown bus. I can't help you.
Right.
And I don't know what colors the schools use. So for me, when the parent calls, I'm like, you know, like I need a little, give me your address, because it's easier for me to identify where a kid lives. And my secretary very lovingly calls me Rain Man, because you could really give me a child's name and I could tell you where they live. Right? And there's 2,300 kids in this district, and I probably know where most of those kids live. If you just give me their name, I can tell you where they're going. All right?
So I think that makes a valid point. I think that the elementary school should share the color of the bus that they're using
I
with
don't know
Liz.
if they're doing colors.
Well, your kid got a tag, right? That's a color and it indicates, I mean, it seems to me.
That's for the school. So
Right.
what Liz is saying is that in years past, my child, I ride the green bus, and that is instead of him having to remember it's 95, he's the green bus, and there would be a green
I'm with you.
thing.
There should
Stop
be
to it.
both, because if you remember the green bus for your kid and you call Liz, it's the green bus. She should know what we're referring to these as, what we're referring for the bus as in terms of a color and the number. So it seems like it's a simple fix that would be really convenient for parents and take some confusion away for Liz and for families. It seems
Yes.
simple to me.
However, it's been reported that there are no colors assigned yet, so
Well-
we need a principal connection there.
Well, I want to add to this.
I have a lots to
Well,
talk about.
you have lots, but I want to add to this. So in the past, the reason that like my kids were on the brown bus at Frank G for eons, right? Because the bus number will change. So that's the thing, like you'd get a sub bus. So that's why the principals went that route. I mean, when it was changed to the blue whale, I was like, why are we the blue whale? And I'll just go back to being brown for me. But it was usually bus, I don't know, 95, but there were days it was not. So that's why the principals use that system. And that may be a communication piece here. I have a very big question, and I don't know if you can answer it right now. Okay, I have high school kids, so I'm looking at this from, my kids are not involved in this, I just have high school kids. So was there a reason that the parents didn't know which building their children were being dropped off first, whether it be Frank G or BV? Was there a reason for that? Because I feel like that would have alleviated some anxiety, but also helped kids understand, like, I got to this building, so I need to get off now. Would that have helped? I mean, and I know, like, in 2019, I got a schedule of a route of my kids, of the times where the bus was going. And if it's a safety issue and we don't want to release that anymore, I think it's very important that the parents know, because once a child's released, parents need to know where their child is. So it gives them an idea. And if you can't give a full bus route, I think we need to look at giving, like, the turns of the bus or something to help parents. I mean, there's a lot of stress and anxiety. I have a high school kid. I could cry. Like, I couldn't even imagine not knowing where my kid was. So is there anything we can do to alleviate that for families?
I don't know, right now, Infinite Campus only allows me to put stops into there. It doesn't allow me to, my routing program communicates, supposed to be nightly, but that's been not happening, with Infinite Campus, and the information rolls into there, and it provides a bus number and a time and a bus stop. It doesn't provide a route.
So one of the, and Liz and I had talked about this, one of the unintended consequences of digitizing a lot of this was limited information that we could provide. So perhaps, and Liz and I talked about this, to be able to send specific email to families of children on a particular bus, whether it's the brown, the blue whale, or bus 92, to say your bus is going here first to drop off before the other school. That might be able to be a separate communication, but wasn't anything that the system allowed us to post in terms of the on the portal. We are looking at that.
So, I mean, I want to let everyone else speak here, but this is something that was an unintended. You can say it was unintended consequence, but it really wasn't, because these are things that came up last year multiple times about transportation and the issues, and this is why we sent out the bus times earlier for parents and the bus stops earlier for parents. Like, I mean, I don't know what could have been done. I hope we never do this again, but I think we really have to look at how we can improve communication going forward so parents feel more comfortable putting their kids on the bus. So that's just, I mean, I'm sure that there's other board members that want to add to it, but I do know that you were given almost an impossible task. I mean, I spoke up for you last year, but it doesn't seem possible, so I know this will get better. I just don't know what that means. Are we looking for that to be a week? Are we looking for that to be 2 weeks? Like, what is okay for this to be? When are parents going to be okay with this being okay? Like, what's your goal for that?
I would like to, within the next 2 weeks, have the serious issues resolved.
Okay.
I do think you were given an impossible task, so thank you. I just had a couple of questions. You mentioned the average ride time. Can you tell me the longest ride time?
I know that I have one of my elementary buses from Frank G. Lindsay that child's on the bus from start to finish, it's 42 minutes.
So 42 minutes. Okay, and I'm looking at your average bus ridership capacity. So I'm thinking this is AM, PM. So in the morning, we have only 53% of students riding the bus. Am I reading this wrong?
That's a
That's
number of children against the capacity.
53 children to
53
70.
kids out of 70 seats.
So would you say that number is more than last year? The same or
I
less?
think it's lower.
It's lower, so less people are driving.
No, less people are riding, more people are.
More driving, less riding.
Well, wait a minute, I want to be really careful here. This number, the average ridership capacity, is the average number of kids on the bus is 53, assuming every child takes the bus.
Right.
Assigned
Assigned.
to that bus.
Right, so it's,
So we don't know who's actually got a butt in a seat.
Right.
right, so.
This is what we routed for, is
Right, we
53
have
of
to
70
route-
seats.
Right, so we.
That doesn't indicate who actually is
We
driving.
have to route for, these are my words, Liz always yells at me, the full liability.
Right.
That if every child
Right.
decides to get on the bus, we know what stop they'll be at and that they will have a seat on the bus because we can't remove them for a lot of reasons, right? Parents, daycares cancel, can't drive, so on and so forth. Everyone needs to have a seat. So if we were at full capacity, if every child got on the bus, we would have on average 53 children on a bus against a capacity of 70 total.
Okay, so are more people driving, dropping off their children?
Well, by the looks of the traffic on Charlie Road, I would say, yeah.
And is it just in the AM or is it in the PM too?
That's mostly in the morning.
So we have more, because this was my fear last year, that we would have much more people dropping off instead of taking the bus. And I said last year that we needed to anticipate that all of those people dropping off would create major traffic concerns. I'm just thinking, are those people now going to actually get on the bus, or are they gonna continue to drive?
I think that they will, a lot of times, especially with the, with our kids at Frenchie, because they're your K-1s, that a lot of the parents, for the first, it's the uncertainty of the children of going to school and going somewhere new. So a lot of times they'll drive them in, the first few weeks of school and then start putting them on the bus. I had a mom reach out to me today and she said, I've been driving my daughter in, but next week, starting Monday, I want her to start taking the bus. Please have the bus stop and get her.
Can you give us an update, maybe
Yeah.
about that?
Sure.
Yeah, that's
And,
one of-
by the end of the fall, like beginning of winter, I have to do my actual student count for NAPDW for state funding because we've changed our elementary format. So it's going to affect our, our money, our aid that we get from the state. So we have to do an actual count also of how many kids are getting on the bus.
Okay, did we have the same amount of buses as last year, or did we?
We have the same amount of buses. We're running, we're doing the Princeton plant, we're doing everything with the same number of buses we had. We didn't hire any additional drivers.
Oh.
And let me just highlight one thing, or question Stephanie asked. That's oftentimes when it takes a few weeks that the system, self-corrects or becomes more efficient because the drivers have more confidence with who is or who is not getting on the bus at the bus stop. And so reducing ridership by 25%, fewer stops, less time at stops usually quickens up the route, right? Going to school and going home. And I said to Liz, well, how do families know that, right? Like if the portal says 8:22 be at your bus stop, but we can get you earlier or later or the ride gets quicker, that's usually a conversation directly between the bus driver and the family. Look, I'm going to be here 2 minutes later because we're not picking everyone up, or so on and so forth. So there are always natural adjustments as we go, but what we can't do is we can't have Liz and her drivers collect ridership information for a month and then take them off the rolls, right? Like if you haven't voted in 20 years, you got to re-register. We can't do that. So that's oftentimes why, for example, today I was, I don't know where I was going, Furnace Woods or from Furnace Woods. I was behind a bus that 3 different times stopped and no one got on, but the bus had to stop just in case. Right now, I'm not going to forecast how many minutes that would have saved if this or that, but after we get into that routine and after families do indicate, like Liz said, look, we're probably not going to be on the bus, but if you see us, grab us, that's usually when these things quicken up.
Thank you.
Do you think that the BV and Frenchie Lindsay sharing the bus in the morning is going to be a long-term workable thing, or do you foresee issues with that?
I
long
think
term?
that if we were to not continue to do it that way, then we wouldn't be able to get everybody to school at the same time. We would have to change bell times and move everything around and.
We have just describe real quick, we have a 4-layer system, is that?
Yeah,
right?
we have a 4-tier system, so it's my high school, my middle school, Furnace Woods, and then we have BV and French Lindsay, so there's 4 levels to it. And by combining the last 2 tiers, which is, the BV, Frenchy, Lindsay, I'm already out in Furnace Woods area picking up kids that are gonna go to BV. So with those same buses, I'm picking up kids that are going to Frenchy. That was the whole idea behind the color-coded bus tags. And, we'll go to one school, drop off, go to the next school, drop off. If we aren't gonna do that, then we would have to have a minimum of 8 more drivers on the road every morning. I don't have 8 drivers. Because right now, the high school has no custodians in it other than the head custodian in the morning. Frenchy Lindsay only has a head custodian. BV only has a head custodian. The middle school only has a head custodian, and Furnace Woods.
And just to remind everyone, many of our custodians double as bus drivers. And so
Right.
when all of public education, last year were closing schools because of lack of bus drivers, many districts either hire a contractor to do the bus services or their bus drivers are hourly employees. We're fortunate, we're one of very few that combine the 2 roles so that we didn't have employment issues.
Right. So in the morning, I'm running 15 buses to do high school, middle school, and then Furnace Woods, and then BV Frenchy.
And how many are you running in the afternoon? Because we have a Frenchie set and a BV set and a Furnace Wood set.
18.
18, okay.
Yeah, so I have buses that leave Furnace Woods and then drop those kids off and then get to either Frenchy or BV. And then I have middle school buses that also go to one of the 2 elementary schools.
Yeah, so one of the age-old questions, we had 3 elementary schools, K-5, why did one of them start early and the other 2 later? And it was to maximize try to be as efficient with the transportation system and staff, but mostly the actual buses. I mean, those things cost what, north of 150?
Yep. About $152,000.
So I'll say thank you, which was probably not something you expected to hear. I don't envy you at all. You didn't ask for this situation, and I feel terrible for the amount of pressure that you were put under, on top of it with the rain. That doesn't discount anyone's experience. I'm not suggesting that deal with it. That's not at all my approach, but I give you a lot of credit for being here today, give you a lot of credit for not being defensive, and I appreciate you being honest and forthcoming and standing in front of us when I know that this is probably the absolute last place you'd rather be right now. So with all sincerity, thank you. I do have questions. I don't know if you can answer all of them now, and I completely understand and respect if you can. None of these are directed at you. All of these are directed in general because I want a better understanding, and I think many people probably would love to hear some of these questions. And if anyone has other questions that they want to address, please address them to Liz and to Superintendent Hochreiter so that we can go ahead and make sure that the community feels additional levels of comfort. How many, let's just speak elementary, because if I understood part of your presentation right, the changes that occurred from a bus route perspective were elementary bus routes that have been adjusted. The middle school and the high school remained the same.
So the middle school, I eliminated 2 bus routes in order to allow me to have those 2 buses start picking up Furnace Woods kids in this part of the district to get them to school on time.
Okay, so that's good to know, 2 fewer. Now, how many bus routes for elementary schools existed last year? And again, Liz, you were not prepared for these. I am writing questions down during this presentation, and I completely understand if you don't have it all memorized. There's a lot in your head, no matter how much of a Rain Man or Rain Woman that you are.
So last year, I still use the same number of buses, so it's 15 buses that I use.
Right.
However, not every bus that dropped at high school, middle school, Furnace Woods also did Frenchy and BV. So some of my Furnace Woods buses did do a Frank G or a BV run. Some of my buses did a high school, middle school, then didn't do Furnace Woods and did Frank G and BV. So I think that, you know, I would have to guess, so I'd rather not give you a guess, and I can give
Please
you a
don't.
better answer.
So the question for me would be, how many
I can
bus
tell you
runs were there last year for elementary, and how many are there this year for elementary?
Okay.
I'm curious what that looks like.
Okay.
Average ride time,
I do have 6 buses at every school, so that I will tell you. Right,
Okay.
this year I have 18.
so average ride time, 32 minutes, 33 minutes. Is that elementary only, or is that everybody?
That's only elementary.
What was it last year? Again, if you don't know, it's information I would
Yeah,
like.
I had provided this to the superintendent, you
Okay.
know, when we talked about
I
this.
think it might be on our Princeton Plain webpage. I'll check.
Okay.
I thought we did an analysis when
I
we did
think
the
we did.
draft runs in the spring.
Yeah.
The reason that I ask is 42 minutes sounds like a very short, longest bus ride time from a projection perspective, if the average is 33. I'm having a hard time wrapping my head around how the longest is only 42, but the average is that high. So I definitely would like to get some more information as it relates to that information, because that means an awful lot of kids are sitting butts in seats for an awful long time, more than they once were, if we are in fact only averaging 33 minutes with a max of 42. Or we have an awful lot of kids at 42 to balance out those that are 4. This is a question for Joe, and it may not, it's transportation, and it may not be appropriate to expect an answer now, so no problem if we need to get back on this one. The state aid conversation that came up. What is the trigger for state aid? Is it mileage, or is it time children
Mileage.
spend on the bus?
Mileage.
Well,
It's for mileage.
yes,
What is the and is it
Well,
per student, or is it for the district's
Per
overall
student.
busing?
per student,
So-
1.5.
So I would like to know what our average student's mileage was last year versus this year, from a district-wide answer as well as from an elementary answer. And where we sit today, so we know where that trigger exists. And also, when you do the ridership count, do you have to assume every child in the bus, even if they're not taking it, to still get the
No, I have to count
1.5?
every child that actually gets on the vehicle.
So if you have fewer kids from Furnace Woods going to Frank G and BV, I'm going to Frank G and BV on a bus, that is going to negatively impact the state aid that we would receive that we're anticipating.
Correct.
And on the flip side, every Frank G and BV traditional homeschool student that would normally not have gone to Furnace Woods, whose parents drive them, is going to reduce so we don't know what our state aid is going to be yet, because we don't have a count on the kids that are actually utilizing the bus.
So the state aid lags a year, right, Enrique? Because I forget the form, but we do the form at the end of August, after our state aid is already set for that year.
Actually, state aid is based on the ST3, and we're working on the ST3. Usually we finish the ST3 in October, November, because more the audit committee.
What's the ST?
What is SD3?
The ST3 is all
Sorry.
our financials. It's like an annual report that you submit to the SEC, but here is the State Education Department. It includes transportation, it includes how much our annual financials, it includes how many days we have students in school, how many days we have teachers. Basically, everything that the state wants to know about our school is in a huge package this big, because it's still in a package.
And that data is evaluated by the state, and that generates our state aid
Exactly.
for the following school year. So there was a question about, and maybe this might help, there was a question that was asked, and maybe this will help Jeremy where you were going, about the state aid. So New York State doesn't reimburse school districts if they drive students within the state recommended walking distance. So the state basically says if you're a high school kid, you should be walking 1.5 miles to school, right? If you're a middle school student, you should be walking 1 mile to school. And if you're an elementary student, you should be walking 0.5 mile to school. So that's the state policy. Districts can adopt policies less than that. We don't have a walking policy because we can't guarantee, because of the topography and because of where our elementary schools are located, we can't safely guarantee that. There are many districts that do. So we bus everyone. I'll use elementary, for example. We bus everyone regardless of where you live. Liz and Enrique have to go through that ST3 and take out everyone that we transport in that ridership number you were mentioning within that 0.5 mile radius, because they can't, their seat on the bus to and from school 185 days a year can't generate state aid. So we were, not as efficient because we were one of the districts not mandating the walking policy for really, really good reason. What is happening is more kids are being transported to schools outside of that 0.5 mile radius that will increase the ridership number that could increase the state aid.
And what determines their distance to the school?
A rat. How a rat moves, not a bird, a rat. So
But from my house or from the bus stop?
from your house.
From my house, so there's no benefit to the district to take a longer route from a bus stop to get more miles on a kid
Oh,
to get.
no.
Because it's based on where my driveway
yes.
ends on the
Oh,
street
yes.
and their distance to the school that they
Yeah, we cannot say, okay, we'll pick up
We're gonna go
the
the long way.
speed.
Yeah, but
Thank you
that's a
for,
legitimate concern, right? So
Yeah.
because of the additional expense to make sure that the kids don't become a token for the opportunity to offset busing costs, I think that it probably makes people feel very comfortable hearing that it's a non-negotiable distance that's related
Oh,
specifically to their address
Yeah.
and their school. But,
Correct, and it's established by the state and not
Yeah.
established by the school district.
and then one other, so we don't get the aid for the kid that doesn't get on the bus though.
Correct.
So the cost exists, if one kid gets on the bus and you have to drive that bus, you're only getting rated or rewarded or reimbursed for the
For
single
one
kid
kid.
who gets on that bus.
Correct.
Okay, thank you so much. I think that covers most of them. And Liz, thanks again.
I'm gonna ask the question that comes, the next thing is, how do you track that? That's, right? How do you track that? And then the other question is, if the state mandates a 0.5 mile, I guess there are a lot of people that live within a 0.5 mile, but how many did we actually gain outside of that 0.5 mile?
Oh.
You gained a lot based on where they're going to school, so.
No, but compared to where they live now, I'm pretty sure, my kids were at Frank G. Lindsay. I know that I'm very close to Frank G. Lindsay, but I'm definitely
Right,
a
I
0.5 mile.
think really if you go into the Princeton Plan presentations that were done, our transportation consultant had put that together, and I think that you'll see what those what the percentages are. But it's a very big change.
I think you're right, but I know I had questions about this the last time around, because a 0.5 mile, I was going to Frank G. and I'm so close, and I'm still more than a 0.5 mile away. So technically, you were still getting state aid for my kid, who literally is maybe 0.6 miles away.
Yeah.
So
Do you get a flat number per kid regardless if you're 0.6 miles or 17 miles?
Yes.
You get a flat number per kid, or it's a
Actually, so
scale
you can
based on
understand a
distance?
little bit, the way it works is, they don't give you for each kid, they take away for each one that doesn't qualify. So.
It's a flat number. It doesn't matter if you're 0.6 or 18, it's the same, you have to eat the longer distance ride,
Yes.
and it's up to you to be efficient. Okay.
So when we get into advocacy season in the winter, you'll read a lot about school boards advocating for greater transportation aid that are out there in rural New York State for that exact reason.
Got it.
Because you've got school districts that are 100 square miles and kids on the bus from their driveway to school is 35 miles, and everyone's getting the same flat rate, whether you're 0.6 or you're
Yeah.
35.
And then one other thing that I think I'll add, and this doesn't impact my kids, sorry, everybody, if you want to go home, you're almost there. Would it be a consideration for the, well, I don't know if this is considered problem solving or operational, but I'll relay it from a parental concern that was clearly voiced over the past 2 days. With a large number of kindergarten and first graders on a singular bus, without it being K through 5 any longer, where there's only a handful of younger kids for the bus drivers to have to account for, to make sure they know, hey, I've got 8 new kids on my bus, I have 4 new kids on my bus, and I'm making sure really they get off, because they don't have the same executive function, right? They're not gonna be as aware when their name gets called. Maybe in the beginning, as a district, we could think about putting a monitor and aid on some of these buses to assist so that the driver can focus on driving and not have to manage a bus with 53 seats that have kindergartner and first graders on it.
Right.
I can't imagine we need it forever, but I also can't imagine that that wouldn't be a practical solution to raise confidence amongst parents and also safety, because the bus drivers are gonna be frazzled. I don't really know that it's a great idea to drive a bus, look at a sheet, make sure you've got a kid who doesn't get off. Creates a lot of headache, and as we talked about teacher aides and that people don't want the job because it's not the highest paying job, maybe it's not that much money to really justify this level of security for our youngest learners.
I totally agree with you. Now we can go to the practicalities of that problem.
Yeah.
In our contract, no one can go on the bus that is not part of the CSEA. So I cannot tell a teacher aide, I'll pay you 2 hours more and go on the bus. I'm taking money from that particular union. We can hire a person, a chauffeur, but we haven't been able to hire enough chauffeurs to be chauffeurs. Now, just imagine someone to tell them, wake up at 6 in the morning or at 7 in the morning to earn $40.
I only think
That's
we
what
need
I'm
it in the
saying,
afternoon.
it's practicality. I totally agree with you. At one point, what we did several years ago was put high school students on the buses.
Yeah.
And we had a problem with the insurance company.
And also.
Because they are not
involved
they are not 18, you know, everything that insurance. So I totally agree with you. The practicality is where we are trying to figure it out, but it's really difficult given the situation.
So I don't think we would need it in the morning. If you think about it, there's 2 stops in the morning, and that's only a quarter of the bus in theory would be kindergartners, right? But in the afternoon, it's almost all of the stops, and it's 50% of the bus. So it's a lot different from a logistics. It's easier to know if half your bus is gone, and if they don't, you just go back to the other school.
Yes,
But when
the
you
other
finish a
problem is
route,
Also, I'm sorry.
no, I just want to protect the drivers too,
Okay,
frankly.
So the other problem is also, is that anyone who's on a school bus must be certified by a school bus driving instructor, which I am. They must be over the age of 21. They must go through monitor training, and we don't have monitors in our breakdown for CSEA.
So,
We need that.
so
It don't exist.
the problem is that by the time we do all this, probably all those problems are being solved, because by then the driver knows who came, Johnny and this, and they'll know.
It's a short-term problem to have to
Yes,
figure out.
it's a short-term problem that it's very difficult to fix, given the restraints that we have as a district.
Thank you, Enrique, I appreciate it.
Liz, I just had a short question. The busing, the Princeton plan doesn't impact our ability to take field trips at the different schools?
I can't send a whole grade level on a field trip. So I've already, one of the one of the, I think it was one of the fifth grade teachers did request for the entire fifth grade to go to West Point, and I told her that she had to break it up because I can't send 5 buses out of district to go on a trip.
So if it would, because we've got 8 sections.
Right.
Well, in that sense, it's not a, if we need to, we can hire an outside coach. That obviously will add substantial amount of money to the trip. But if it's one in the lifetime, we can look at it. But the way Liz is saying it is like we don't have enough drivers and custodians. For us, when there's a major trip, it's very difficult during the day because we're taking custodians out of the building. So as good as the system is, driver custodian, some of those problems come in when we need to take a custodian during the day from their custodial responsibilities to drive kids to
That's something I wasn't aware of whatsoever.
Yeah, that's always been how it is. I mean, before it was Princeton Plan, I only would allow a certain number of buses out each
Yeah, but the
day.
grades could always go together.
Yeah, we did it. 8th grade, 5th grade.
Always go together.
Or do
8th
you-
grade was split though,
Local?
by team.
We went to bowling,
I know.
and that was all 5, that was 5 buses.
That was for an hour and a half.
It was, yeah, I mean, so there is options. It may not be West Point, but there is options,
Right, I
right?
think
Yeah,
you
yeah,
said
yeah.
going out of town,
Okay.
like far.
Yes.
So it probably has to be evaluated case
Okay.
by case,
Yes.
is my guess.
Okay, so that's fair. I mean, so maybe it's not West Point, but maybe there are local options that they could do as a group.
And we're not gonna reduce field trips, we're just going to do them in a segmented fashion within the grade, the same way we would have if the district was not changed the attendance policy, right? The kids aren't gonna get fewer field trips
No.
because of
No,
this, right?
we want more field trips. But remember that before we were Princeton Plan, very rarely did a grade go together because they weren't in the same school.
Yeah,
So
they-
BV third grade would plan a trip. They didn't ask Frank G. or Furnace Woods to go with them.
Right.
100% agree. I just wanted to make sure that
No,
I
we
didn't
would
consider
love
this
to do
point.
more. It's the number one question I get from staff.
Especially after years of not.
Yes.
And the only thing is, I know we want to finish, but the tracking of this, and I don't need an answer now, but how you track it and when we'll know that we actually met our, I'm going to be honest, what was promised to the community was a certain amount of money to offset this plan. So when will we know that we met that expectation as presented to us?
Can you repeat?
So the question is, when will we have an idea of our expected increased transportation state aid? We do our ST3, so
2 years.
after this
In
year,
2
we have to
years.
get through this year, collect the data, submit it.
And then
would
it
be in
takes a
state aid.
year
So
for
that's-
the-
I mentioned earlier, Erica, that there's a lag. There's a lag in state aid because you have to finish the whole year, and then you've got to submit the report. Same thing with special education.
But we'll know when we submit it what it is. It's not a moving target, right? So we should, when we submit it, we'll know that
It's
we
like
hit
there's-
this trigger, so we're expecting them not to take this much money. So it shouldn't be 2 years to find out, because if not, we could be in trouble next year if we're budgeting for state aid to come in and we didn't meet our number.
The problem, Jeremy, is that that's a major component of the transportation state aid. But there's another 30 components, wealth ratio.
Well, that's in our favor now, right?
That takes 3 years, and yeah, that's going to be in 2 years.
Let me just ask this. So when we finish this entire school year, June 30th, right, we had 12 whole months, 10 whole months. After June 30th, we collect the data to send to the state around this time next year.
Yes.
So that's the lag. So when we do our ST3 from the 22-23 school year, it will be in around October of '23 looking backwards.
Okay, so we are gonna be 2 years budget-wise, because we anticipated
Yes.
getting the full boat, and next year we're gonna anticipate it again, and then we're gonna hope that it works, otherwise we have to figure out what our actual expense is as it relates to this additional transportation cost that we have incurred through this new model.
The new expenses are very easy because really the biggest two expenses in transportation are the cost of the drivers and the gas.
Yep.
You know, the rest is very little, like everything. The cost of our drivers is not more because they are the same number of drivers. Maybe, you know, if you want to be fair and say, okay, but the driver is 15 minutes more driving compared to last year, so he's going to be 15 minutes less cleaning the building. We can add that to the, you know, to be able to compare orange with orange. We can say it's half an hour more. So the cost of half an hour more times 8, that's, you know, 4 hours more a day of the average, times 180. Plus gas, let's say, at least can track the gas.
Right.
And let's say that the gas is 10 gallons more a day, times 180 times $3. So our expense, I can tell you, June 27th, the day after we close school.
Right.
Okay.
The revenue is where it will take me a year and a half to tell you, because I will get the first number of state aid in February of 25. I'm sorry, of 24. That's really the problem, that the expense side is very simple.
Okay.
You'll have that number in the last meeting in June. The revenue is what, you know, and then we'll see, okay, our expense was $50,000 more. Our revenue was 300,000 or 200. Okay, we made money, or we did.
Thank you.
And that's the hang up with state aid, and as our wealth ratio changed, right? As the Indian Point pilot dwindled, in the state's eyes, we became poorer because of the basically the burden, right? The tax burden became more to us as opposed to Indian Point. Much like this, the state wants you to run through a couple cycles, and a cycle means a full school year, to look at part of the data that we provide are the student counts, their demographics, yada, yada, yada. We provide a bunch of information on, I'm going to say the housing market, but taxes and tax levies and assessments. So the state never wants to give you more money quicker. You know, they want to almost see a trend. But if they overpay us for whatever reason, they'll just send us an email and say we're basically dipping into your account and taking it away. So we'll be able to track expenses, revenues come, as Enrique said, about a year later.
Okay.
I just want to say that when this was all presented, it almost seemed like guaranteed money. So going forward, when you bring this to us, it would have been nice to know, and I was on the board a year and a half ago or 2 years ago when this was voted on. I think that it would have been helpful to know that it was going to take 2 full cycles to see this money. And I also wish it was explained that this was actually tied to the tracking the kids on the buses. Because if we don't meet that expectation, that means overall our Princeton plan savings are not as high as what was projected. So I just want to, just going forward when this kind of stuff's presented, I think it's important to get into the minutia of it a little bit more so that we have a better understanding and the community has a better understanding of what it takes to actually meet the expectations and qualify. You guys are the professionals, you all know, but the rest of us don't, so.
Yeah, we can look at, Liz mentioned one of the gentlemen we worked with through BOCES to help us with the routing, and did looked at some ST3s and estimated what the revenue would be, so we'll go back to that too.
Thank you.
We'll see what that calculation was.
Thank you. Thank you, Liz.
Liz.
Thank you so much.
Okay. All right, we're we're moving on to our audience comments on agenda items. Carmen, do we have anyone signed up? Well, I know we have people signed up. Who's first?
Rachel.
I'll be really quick. Question for Margaret and Lisa. Can you clarify the benchmarks that are being done? What are those tests?
Rachel, if you would just go through your questions and then they can
perfect.
take
Okay.
note.
So
And
I
they
would
will
like-
get back to you
Great.
with all of the answers at one time.
So if we get clarification on what those benchmark tests are and what grades, because I was told there are no benchmark tests at the high school. Are we finished with all of our bond projects from the original bond? Is everything completely done? Is there gonna be a public presentation?
Hold on one second. Is all departments taking notes? That's not Margaret. Okay.
Is there gonna be a public presentation on the ESSER money and the GEER money that was given to us? Are we gonna ever know how that money was spent? And what it was spent on, and did we actually use it all? And I think it's up until next year, right, 2024 rather, that we have to spend it all. For the transportation, like the butts in the bus, are we talking hundreds of thousands of dollars, or are we talking like $100,000? Because like Erica said, we thought this was a done deal. We didn't realize that this was all contingent on those butts in those seats. So like, are we like, how much are we really talking here? And I would like to know how many hours a day are the kids in elementary schools? So I know like the start times and the end times, but like, when I was looking at the schedules, like when they start, when they end, it looks like there's like a discrepancy on how many hours the kids at Furnace Woods are actually there for. And if there's like an early dismissal, like it just doesn't seem so, are they getting more instructional hours than Frank G and BV?
We couldn't do that contractually.
You can't contractually guarantee that the students are all getting equal numbers of.
Not do it.
Margaret, we'll get back to
Okay,
that.
great. So that's it. Those are my questions.
Thank you, Rachel.
Thank you.
That's it?
Yep. All right. All right, thank you all for coming and working through this with us. Can I have oh wait, no, is there? Yeah, is there any committee reports or board comments, new business? I know most of our committees are just about to get started, so I'm hopeful that at our next meeting, we'll have some info to share, but does anybody have anything that they?
I'm out.
Good.
All acronymed out?
Yeah, I'm good. I got
Anybody
studying
cheat
to
sheet,
do. Yeah.
We'll make one for next time. All right, well then I guess we're good. Can I have a motion to close the meeting? Second? All in favor?